Welcome to Practice Play, Lesson 8. It's Michael Houghton here, and this week we're covering marking. Just very quickly, before I jump onto this lesson plan, I've had some feedback for some of you that maybe are coaching at under 8 level or lower, just saying that maybe the kids are struggling with some of these lesson plans. So I'm going to be launching a new series specifically designed for under 8 and under 6 hockey, which will just be covering the fundamentals. So look out for that on the YouTube channel. So in this particular lesson plan, we're just going to be doing our usual warm-up. We're going to have a warm-up game of teams stuck in the mud. We're then going to move on to play one, which will be a small-sided game of one-on-one marking. We'll go over to our practice, which will be a 3v3 goal attack, and then we'll go back into our small-sided game at the end, and that's our hockey session. So let's cover it in detail. This is our standard warm-up slide. At this stage, we know this one, so you can look back on previous lessons if you are catching up for the first time. So for teams stuck in the mud, this one requires a little bit of explanation, but it is a lot of fun. All right, so basically we're going to split our group into two teams, and one team will have bibs. We're going to play in an area, so we can do an area of cones, or we can just use a quarter pitch, or maybe just a circle, depending on how many players you have. Basically, each team will nominate one defender, all right, and that defender will look to tackle the attacking players from the other team. For all the attacking players, each attacking player is given a ball, and then we start the game. The other players, the attacking players, their idea is to basically dribble the ball around in the area. They're looking to not be tackled by the defender. If they are tackled, then they're stuck in the mud. And this one here, you've probably seen, it's basically they'll just stand with their arms out like this, with their legs spread apart. They'll be holding their hockey stick in one hand, and they're looking to be freed. And the idea is that the attacking players from their team will be looking to find the players that are stuck and dribbling the ball between their legs to free them. When they're freed up, just throw a ball into them and they can go and run around again. Basically, the game should only last a minute or two. Basically, eventually one team will get fully stuck, so all of their attackers will get stuck, and at that point, that team loses and the other team wins. Now, depending on how many players you have, you need to kind of keep your attacking defender ratio probably to roughly 3-1. So maybe 3 or 4 attackers to 1 defender would be the ideal. So just keep that in mind that you may need to have 2 or 3 defenders on each team depending on your numbers. And lastly, obviously, once the first game is played, swap the defender and go through. So maybe everybody gets a go as a defender, but again, it should only take 10 minutes, and you might run through 3 or 4 different games at that time during that time. We then move on to play one, so you might want to let the players have a quick drink just before you set up for this. This is going to be our standard small-sided game, 4v4, 5v5, or 6v6. The constraint this week is that each player is assigned to mark another player. So again, we split our group into 2 teams. The great thing about this is that we can assign each player another player to mark, and we can actually do that based on the standard of the player. Right? So if you've got 2 particularly strong players, you can split them into 2 teams, and they can mark each other. Basically, the idea here is that players can switch players that they mark if communicated by communicating with another player, which is exactly how we do it in a real hockey match. Obviously, if you're attacking, you don't need to be marking, so it's only when you don't have the ball that we want to see our players move into a marking position. And let's run over, and the setup will explain this a lot easily. So in this case, we have red attacking from left to right and blue attacking from right to left. Okay, so our red player has the ball. We can see that we've got a defender here. They're tucked in, they've kind of come out of their marking position here maybe, and they're looking to become an option. So firstly, for our red players, they've got a couple of options here, right? So we could maybe see them make a pass here for this player to run into space. That would be a really, really nice pass. And then obviously this red player move into this space here, maybe get our 1-2s going that we've talked about. All right. We can see that this red player here is behind the blue player, so we want to see this red player trying to make some space, right? So maybe they will call for a ball through here. That'd be really nice, and the red player comes onto that. All right, so that's firstly from our attacking point of view. We want to see our players moving away from their marker and trying to create space where they can, right? Obviously, another play would be for them to run across here, and we get a pass going down here, which would be going on the weak side of this marker here, so that would be really good. Okay, so we're just trying to see that. That's quite simple from an attacking point of view. But the actual point of this is more around defending marking and making sure that our players step onto a player. All right, so we want to see when our players have the, in this case, red has the ball, we want to try and see this player working back to pick up this player. This is quite good here. Okay, so this player is probably out of position here, right? Sorry, that's the attacking player. So blue here is kind of covering off. We might want to see blue shimmy back here, all right, so that they're actually goal side of that player. Okay, this particular player here is probably too far back, so we want to see them step to the ball carrier. And what's really important, ideally, what we want to be seeing is a concept known as attack the attacker. I will be covering this off in a specific lesson at some point, but let's introduce the concept a little bit here. All right, so I'll just get rid of my arrows. Let's say that red player here is able to beat this player. All right, so have them go dribble around the player's weak side. So they've been able to beat the player. They're now sitting here with the ball. All right, we now have this blue player between the two players here. What we ideally want to see is this blue player stepping up a little bit here, so keeping a line between the two red players, maybe stepping into a tackling position, and this blue player who's been beaten, we want to see them running back in this direction to try and cover this player here. Okay, so it's a concept known as attack the attacker, all right, which is where we see our players switch markers because one is beaten. Right, so in this case, we'll call this player player A, we'll call this player player B. Player A is beaten. Player A will run back towards the goal, ideally the top of the circle or something like that. Player B will step up accordingly to cover this space. All right. Now, obviously, they need to step here because if they don't, right, again, I'll just remove my arrows. If they don't step and this player is beaten, then this player's got a clear line to the goal, and that's no good. And the reason that we try to make this step up is because in hockey, it's illegal to tackle somebody from behind. So yeah, red player's beaten blue. Blue then decides to turn and try and tackle by diving their stick into the player. That's going to just be a free against them. If they're doing that within the quarter, within the 23, they're actually going to be giving away a short corner in senior hockey. So we're trying to discourage that and look to get that player to retreat, for the two players to communicate, to say, yep, I'm retreating, you step up on this player, let's swap our players and try and get that course of action going. So that's really what we're looking to introduce here. Okay, it's going to be a lot of fun. This should be a lot of fun for players. It should be pretty tiring as well, but it should be a lot of fun. All right, we then take a break after our 12.5 minutes, and we step up for our 3-on-3 goal, our 3-on-3 attack. Let's run over to this one. So again, this one should be a lot of fun. It's pretty standard. We basically start with a game. Okay, so we're going to start with a drill of 3 defenders and 3 attackers. If you've got other players, which you likely will have more than 6, then just, in this case, you've got 9, then you could just have another team, so they go up in waves. In this case, if you've got 12, which are going to be common, you could have cones here for where they start if you want to. Otherwise, I just sometimes just have them starting in 3s. All right, so it's a 3-on-3 attack. We're simply looking for the attacking team to head this way. If the defending team picks up the ball, then they can just clear the ball out to the sidelines or clear it up here. There's nothing fancy for the defending team here except to try and get the ball and clear it. Okay, basically once it happens, that's over. This should only take 30 seconds or so for each play. Once the play is over, then the next group goes and so on and so forth. All right, what we're looking for though is we're looking for our defenders to pick up our players here, right? So obviously we're looking for this defender to mark here, to mark here, and to mark here, all right, and introducing the concept of switching. All right, so this player here gives the ball to this player here. This player then runs this way. I'll remove my arrows 1 second. No, I get criticized sometimes that I get too many arrows. So this player gives a pass. This player then moves off this direction. This player moves off this direction, right, which would be great movement. We want to see these two players in this case communicate, right? So these two players communicate to say, yep, I'll pick up this new player. I'll pick up this new player. All right, and we just want to ensure that our defenders are have each got a player marked. All right, and you'll see, particularly at younger level, right, you'll see basically 2 players step up on 1 player, leaving a player free. Right, this player moves up to here. Suddenly you've got 1 pass and you're into the goal. Okay, so that's all we're looking to prevent here. Marking should be super fun. It should be an easy one to coach, and the players should get a lot of fun from it. Okay, we then go back, and we're going to go back to our small-sided game again. This time we get a 15-minute game, and let's just highlight good examples of marking. All right, so maybe when players are switching, we'll say that that's really good. and just, maybe identifying when players aren't marked. Why wasn't that player marked? Who should have been picking that one up? And I guess I should just finish by saying that particularly on defense, and let's get rid of these arrows, right? Our center back should be the one who's calling out, making up big switches here, right? So it's identifying who should be marking who. In a standard hockey game, we would also have a goalkeeper here to help. So normally have a center back and a goalkeeper would be calling on marking. Our goalkeeper actually has the best vision defensively. All right, obviously in training, not all teams will have a goalkeeper. If you do, great. That's a job for them to be working on for this particular exercise. All right, that was number 8. We've got 6 more to go after this, 14 lesson plans all in all. So if you haven't already, do please subscribe, and I will look forward to catching you on the next lesson.